to Divine Decode, where hidden wisdom and higher frequencies meet the real world experience. Today's guest is Peter Gunn, a U.S. Air Force veteran, poet, graphic novelist, and spiritual explorer with a powerful life. From childhood obesity and a near death experience to decades of service and the launch of Sigma Squad, Peter weaves epic literature with deep spiritual awareness. We're diving into this groundbreaking framework of Dr. David Hawkins' Map of Consciousness, decoding how we can ascend from fear to love and ultimately to truth. Welcome, Peter. So good to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you letting me be here.
Okay. So, yeah, Peter, Dr. Hawkins' Map of Consciousness is a very profound framework, right? So, what
Yes.
drew you to this model, and how has it influenced your view of human behavior and awakening, and how has it just affected?
Well, Dr. Hawkins won't admit to an NDE, but he had a very much same experience as a young child as I did with my NDE. I think it both woke us both up, and him to do his work, me to do my work. And I think it's important for people to be aware at now if you say, at least in America, that you're not on my level, people automatically assume it's an insult. But those that are at a higher level of the map of consciousness understand it's not an insult. They understand exactly where you're coming from, because people in different levels, okay, talk in different languages. So just to give you an example, someone that's elevated towards the top of the map of consciousness, okay, if someone does something wrong to them, they would be more apt to turn the other cheek, walk away, and bless them. Okay. But then the person that's at a lower level would, so we say, automatically want revenge. Okay. And then he would also view the person that walked away and turned the cheek as weak. So they speak two different, very different languages, and they got to understand that. It's important if you're going to take on helping somebody to understand and think about that map of consciousness. Where's this person at? Okay. And you have to talk to them from that viewpoint then. Okay. Because to tell them to turn the other cheek, they're going to think you're crazy. You have to wait till they get to that point, then to understand.
So, was there a very specific level of consciousness that you personally identified with during a turning point in the life journey?
Love. For my NDE, I think you talk to anybody who had NDEs. It's not just me. There's a lot of people that report the same thing. Is there's on the other side, there's a sense of all-encompassing love, and it makes you feel like everything's all right. You've never felt anything like that before in your life, and um, it feels like it feels almost like it feeds you, I guess you could say, and your energy, and there's nothing like it. There isn't a day that I go by that I wish I had that feeling again. But, I know it's waiting for me when I pass over on the other side again, though. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That was such a raw and really nice insight on that. And would you like to tell us about this thing that the map moves from shame and guilt all the way up to enlightenment, right? So why do you think so many people get stuck in the lower vibration, like especially when it's about fear and apathy? Why do they get stuck?
Well, I don't want to necessarily use the word lemmings, but people tend to want to fit into cliques and their society. Okay. If you're going to elevate yourself, you're going to also elevate yourself around the people you identify with currently. Okay. So in other words, you're going to be alone. And a lot of people don't have the courage to do that. That's been a personal decision that everyone's going to have to take. Now, you might find someone in the future that's going the same path, but you be prepared to stay alone if you're going to go down this journey. And that's what makes it so hard for people is they don't want to give up friends, family, because it's very likely you become alienated from your friends and family, and they might actually hate you for it. I've seen that, and it happens, unfortunately. They're jealous, and they don't like it. Yeah.
Okay, so are you one of those who believe, or do you even believe that cultural systems are designed in a way which keep us to those lower frequencies? Like they somehow influence it, or there is some cultural stigma or a system that just brings us to those lower frequencies.
Well, I'll give you an example. And a lot of societies, like ones that believe in arranged marriages, okay, I've talked to podcast hosts from societies like that when they read my novel, the Amazons, it's encouraging the females to go out and have their own her hero's journey. Of course, uh, some of them don't like it. Now, if I am going to talk to 20 different dads and probably get 20 different answers on how to raise their daughters, of course, and it's okay, it's their opinion. But I think a lot of cultures out there are afraid to allow women to empower themselves and go out on their own hero's journey. I mean, I'm not saying it's, go out, pick up a sword, go join the military, but it might be going something as simple as going to another part of the world to go to college, and then learning who you are. Okay. I think it's a lot better and healthier for a woman to come into herself and come into her own before she gets into marriage, because then she knows who she is. Her self identity isn't just in the household.
Yeah, very right. Can even relate to some of it. You blend epic poetry, Gnostic gospels, and graphic storytelling. So, how do you see this creative expression contributing to raising a collective consciousness?
Well, anyone that's read my work, and I just got an email from another podcast host I just did about a week ago, stating that there's a mystic quality to it. Now, a lot of people on the indie side of the house, they started calling me my unofficial nickname, the Spellcaster, because it sticks in your head when you make the right rhymes. It's almost like music, and it will help push the message even more so because it's stuck in your head. I've had plenty of people that have said that they've read my stuff, but then they unintentionally kept rhyming. And when they went to talk to friends and family or whatever, and I've done it myself where I had to make a phone call after writing, and I started kept rhyming what I was saying to the person unintentionally, and they were like surprised. Do you intend to make that rhyme? I'm like, no, it wasn't. So it very much gets stuck in your head, and it helps push home the message even more so.
So, how do you make deep metaphysical ideas digestible through art and story? Like art and story can actually help a lot in, bringing out new ideas. So, how do you make those deep metaphysical ideas?
Oh, okay. How do I make metaphysical ideas adjustable through art and story? Well, I bring it down to the level that people can understand. It's not everybody's willing to pick up a book that's 3 inches thick without pictures and just start adjusting it. You need to bring it into a form that people will understand and actually enjoy. So where LLP comes into it is that I can put the message into poetic form, people will be more willing to read it. And then of course, then I bring it into graphic novel form. Okay, your average Joe is more likely to pick it up and read it. And it allows me to get the message across to where, before they wouldn't even be willing to listen. They don't want to pick up that book, that sports thing, unfortunately. Yeah. So we need to bring it down to a level that people understand easier.
So you mentioned that your daughter inspired the Amazons to balance the masculine heavy hero's journey. How does integrating the divine feminine shift our collective consciousness? What do you think?
Well, it's allowing women to understand, and young girls especially, that they can go out and have their own hero's journey. You walk into any bookstore and or any library, and Dante's Inferno is always going to be there. The Iliad, the Odyssey is always going to be there. Beowulf is always going to be there. But where is the representation from the to the feminine, something they can understand and interact with? I realize, it's in history and the feminine wasn't allowed back then, but I think it's about time we start integrating them into epic novels and our future.
So, do you think are we on the brink of more balanced, heart-centered awakening culture at the stage?
Well, I would say, look at the younger generations. Okay. If you look at a 10-year-old right now versus, yourself as when you were 10-year-old, do you see an improvement in consciousness? Do you see them at a different level than you were? Yes. So you look at it that way, then definitely yes. And that's why I'm also writing, the Amazons and bringing in comic and pictures and something like that to make it more palatable for Gen Z and the new Gen Alpha that's up and coming to understand my message.
Right. Right, like you said, so for someone who is just discovering Hawkins' work or feeling stuck in a lower vibration, what's that one small, consistent shift they can make to begin rising on the scale and reaching the upper level?
Well, ask yourself, like I'll bring back the example of turning the other cheek. When someone does something wrong to you, okay, be conscious about it and like ask yourself, what would a person that's elevating do? Okay. And that is, you know, be the bigger person, walk away, and you don't have to say anything. You don't even acknowledge their presence. In fact, it's more of a power move if you don't, because they're expecting some sort of response for you, and you just walk away. That will help you elevate. That's one of the steps you could do to take. Don't act at lower levels, act at higher levels, and start making conscious efforts to do it.
And so there are many vibrations that people have to every day. So, what do you do personally when you feel yourself stuck or slipping into those lower frequencies? I'm sure they do happen. So, what do you do to either come out of it, or what's the process that you follow?
Well, if you look at it as a chart, it would look like a stock market chart. We're always going up and down all the time. No one stays consistent. I think only Jesus Christ would constantly stay up there and elevated. But be aware, start looking back. Look at yourself, 3 months, in the past, a year in the past. And if you don't recognize yourself from that far away, then like, okay, yes, you are making progress. You might even hold some disdain for that person in your past. Like, I couldn't believe I did that or I was like that. That's when you know you're making progress. So don't necessarily be so hard on yourself. We're all trip and fall, but keep making steps towards it in the right direction.
Right, right. So true. That it's the daily choice that we have to make and choose our own levels and integrity and willingness towards uh, preparing our own conscience. Very right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, what a beautifully charged dialogue with you, Peter. And from Hawkins' scale to Gnostic wisdom and poetry storytelling, you remind us that decoding consciousness isn't just about knowledge, it's also about embodying. If today's episode stirred something in you, listeners, don't ignore it. Pause and reflect and take your next step upward. Until next time on Divine Decode, stay sovereign, stay awake, and keep rising.